Oliver Starr, welcome to the show. You are the wolf guy. I like to think of as the wolf man, but that was somebody else. Wasn't that a famous radio guy, Wolfman somebody?
I think there was a long time ago. There's been
But
several wolf men, but I think I'm the only wolf guy.
you're the only wolf guy because you're the only one who lives and sleeps and eats and wanders in the forests of Lake Tahoe with your wife and your wolves. It's quite an extraordinary book you've written, The Wolf Lover's Guide to Raising Dogs. And it's an interesting moment in time that you've come to me with your book, Oliver, because a number of books have come to me about wolves. And one of them that I recently interviewed the author is a novel called Wolf Dog. Oh, I have to, never mind. I'm going to decline that. Never mind. That's something to do with AI. We're going to ignore that. Something jumped up on my screen to do with AI. Terrifying. And the consciousness about wolves seems to be out there. There seems to be an awareness, a thoughtfulness. I've talked to a researcher at Oxford. They've just come out with some very interesting, they're historical, going back thousands of years, about wolves and men and how they came to live with each other. But your desire, because you rescue wolves and you save them and you have come to understand them not as captive animals, but as animals who you actually are in a pack with, you have something to tell us about the dogs in our lives because the wolves have shown you what they need. And you strongly understand and believe that our dogs come from those wolves genetically, historically, right?
I do. The similarities are obvious to anybody. And I think evidence now, by the way, I'll shout out to one of my favorite books. It's called The Invaders by Dr. Pat Shipman. And
Yes, yes.
her contention, which I actually agree with, because we've been theorizing, how did we get the dog? And it's been suggested that certain wolves were more predisposed to spend time closer to human habitation, that they were friendlier. And I think that there's a lot of possibilities there. But I think that our early association was pivotal in our success compared to other hominid species, namely Neanderthals. And a big part of my interest is understanding what happened and how those relationships work. And so it's a small scale, self undertaken experiment to live in this very close proximity to wolves, where my home is in their habitat and we interact constantly, and to see what that's about. And it's given me insights into their behavior. And I think that those insights are helpful for anybody who wants to have a dog that loves them more.
Well, that's a really good way of putting it. When I first started the book, I thought, okay, this man is a conservationist, if you will, wants to make sure wolves are not, that they get protected, that they're put back in the wild if they've been taken out of the wild or eradicated. They're a really important apex predator. Things that many of us have learned over time because humans, of course, the old swinging pendulum, we make mistakes. Oh, let's get rid of them because they're harmful to X, Y, or Z. And then, oh my God, we've got too much of something else because only the wolves can control that. But you've gone so far beyond just observing them. You are you are to wolves not what Diane Fossey was to gorillas or Jane Goodall to chimpanzees. You're something else entirely, Oliver Starr. You decided in a weird kind of wonderful way to be a wolf. I know that isn't what you say in the book, but that's what I come away with. You put your habitat, meaning your dwelling, in a place where a lot of wolves are living. And now there is an enclosure, right? And they can't just disappear
Right.
forever. But you bring up a point that's been brought up by many other ethologists, which is that the early work that was done studying wolves was bogus because they were captive wolves living in a fairly small, in captivity in a very small space, not the dozens or hundreds of miles that they would need to travel. So everything was misperceived, and then that was laid on to dog understanding, i.e., alpha wolf, one wolf in charge, knock the other guys to the ground, as you point out in your book, like Caesar Milan. I know, I'll be alpha, only to discover, is that a wolf I hear?
There, yeah, yes.
That's so cool. I don't know if everyone can hear it, but there's a wolf howling. Oh my God, we never get to hear that. You hear it all day and night.
Sometimes I worry about the neighbors, but so far, decades on, they're pretty understanding.
It's a beautiful sound. It's
Thank
almost like
you.
singing. It's like
Oh, it is singing.
it's like a singing bowl or something. It's very beautiful. But I
Depends on the
think,
moment.
yeah, could be times you think, could you please zip your lips? You have just taken the whole understanding of wolves by yourself with your wife, a pack of two, with a pack of many wolves around you, to understanding them for who they are and how they would interact with early man. You've made yourselves into not necessarily Neanderthals, but early man, right? You talk about not bathing for days on purpose so that they can be comfortable with your scent and comfortable with who you are. And you don't necessarily recommend that for humans with their dogs, but you say, give
Early,
them your underpants if you must.
yes. Early, so the thing is that one of the things that's really important about wolf and dog development is that their most basic underpinning hard wiring is olfactory first.
Okay.
It's what's safe. It's what matters.
Okay.
With wolves, I think it's even more important, especially because wolves will den. The mother wolf is principally the only other animal in the den besides the pups. And at the very first moments, really, their olfactory system is the only one that's fully firing. And they're riding that base hard drive of who's safe. And that we know that canids in general have an extraordinary sense of smell. We watch it all the time in their behaviors and what's interesting to them and how they interact with each other. And so, one of the things I recommend for anybody that has a puppy is you can leverage this by letting them know what's safe, and what's safe is their family, their people.
Right.
And so intimate garments, dirty underwear, dirty socks. Basically, we don't spend money on puppy pads when we have tiny wolf puppies. We just put our dirty clothes in there and then we wash it after. And they know who we are. And that initial bond creates the same kind of familial bond that wolves would have with their pack mates.
And you've done it as a human experiment to understand these animals better, but you do think of it in terms of how to give dogs and people a better bond, a better life, better communication, and better choices in how to live. I think one of the things that jumped out at me is your belief, theory, mission, which I share, which is let dogs be more dogs. Let them do what they want to do, how they want to do it. Don't yank them around on a leash and tell them, we're on a walk, walk, don't sniff, walk, get over here, sit down, stand up. Okay, back in your crate. Okay, you're going to be in this apartment for 8 hours. One of the things that struck me in seeing the way that you live, which is primitive, primal, something extraordinary, poetic, is that I'm not sure that people know how to live anymore. And I don't mean to get all gooey and weird. I've been saying for years now on the show, you got to let your dog be a dog. Try and let him or her express their dogness. Sniff a butt, lick a whatever, whatever those things are, as well as what exercise could look like to them. But I wonder if people really know. The more we read about people addicted to these scrolling things on their phones, it's not just teenagers at all, at all.
No, you're
And
you're
I
so
don't
right.
think people are aware of their surroundings. If they could sit and enjoy, Alexandra Horowitz says, sit with your older dog and let the dog have a sniff event and sit on a hillside and sniff the breeze and look at the pine trees. Do people do that? Shouldn't we be doing
It
that?
really scares me. A big part of what I'm interested in is educating the next generation. My whole journey started.
I
I
love this.
like
You got to
I
tell
like
the
to say
story
I
because
blame
I
my
loved it.
I blame my mother. So my mom was an English teacher. My family was a cattle family, and so we weren't touchy-feely people. My mom was for sure the most touchy-feely of us. And she read me this book when I was, I don't know, 4 years old called A Wolf of My Own. It's about a little girl that gets a striped box with holes with a puppy in it, and she imagines it's a wolf, and they
Yes.
have adventures. And I was captivated by the book, but the problem was I was a very literal child. I really decided at that moment that it was going to be a wolf. It took me a very long time. I was pragmatic. I understood this was not a normal pet, but it just, my attention was focused and I just became fascinated with wolves. And because of that genesis, I really worry about the next generation of kids growing up right now who see the whole world through a screen instead of through their own eyes and getting out and experiencing it. It's one of the learnings from COVID that I had because we used to go to schools and do national park talks, and
Oh,
I'd
nice.
I'd bring wolves places. And of course, that's quite popular. Students really love to have an animal in a classroom. But what I discovered after we started doing everything remotely during COVID, and it was alerting, but also scary to understand it, that I had their attention better when they were behind a screen, one
Wow.
on one, than
Wow.
when I was in the classroom and there were fewer distractions. I got better questions from the kids because when they were at home behind the screen, they were less concerned about the reaction of their fellow students.
Mhm.
And
And by the way, let me just say, you talked about a wolf pup being safe and something familiar. The human felt safe behind a screen. That was a safe place, not the
right,
actual real world with unpredictable things that could happen, people that
the,
could walk in, wolves that could walk in.
right,
They-
consequences. And
Yes,
grown-ups have this too, right? They think they can
yes,
say whatever they want without consequences
absolutely.
because the remoteness of a screen enables that. And so one of the things that I think is a point of tension for me personally is the idea of having wolves as pets. And one of the things that I thought was an improvement about being behind the screen and doing these remotely was I didn't have a wolf on a leash in a classroom, and there wasn't a little boy like me who was like, I want a pet wolf.
Right, right.
Because, of
Because
course,
that is very disturbing, as are wolf dogs. I mean,
it,
I recently had a woman on who has a wolf and wolf dog sanctuary, begging people. These are not pets. They don't want to live in your house. They don't want to sit or be housebroken or not eat the entire chicken that's sitting on the counter.
they're terrible pets. I mean, we made dogs for a reason, or dogs made us with them for a reason. I have an Alaskan Malamute, and there's not a day that goes by when I don't look at her. She's a very wolfy dog. I've got a children's book coming out called The Little Malamute Raised by Wolves because she's naughty. She's really very wolfy. She's got some bad behavior, but she's infinitely better to live
Yes,
with than a
yes,
wolf. And the problem is that people saw Game of Thrones or they see somebody like me doing something strange, and they're like, I want that.
yeah,
And they don't realize the undertaking and the consequences and the challenges. And most of these animals, more than 90% by most estimates, end up dead or in rescue before they're mature because dogs stay perennially a little bit juvenile, right? That's part of what we did is we created a
right,
dependence, right?
yes,
We're the wonderful universal remote control that opens the fridge. The wolf doesn't
correct,
care about the remote control. It can knock over the fridge just fine.
yes.
And we bring into our home a management challenge. And I like to tell people that I think of wolves as something that's got about the intellect of a 7-year-old child that always has a handgun.
Wow. You
And
know,
not be
I really like that because I do believe that people who choose to have the absolutely dangerous breeds, now they don't want you to think a Cane Corso is dangerous, but they're lying. They have a loaded shotgun, but they want a loaded shotgun, and they can't really admit to that. But they want to be themselves the impulsive, quick to anger even 7-year-old with a gun because mouthful of teeth and 180 pounds of muscle. And I think that what you're doing can be really confusing in exactly the way that you said. Look at the wolves. There's pictures of you in the book. Book's so good. And it has pictures of you hanging with the wolves. And I'm thinking, and you even have talked about the danger, even to you who is so knowledgeable, knows what the triggers are, knows what to do or not to do. You've put yourself in jeopardy unwittingly. And it's really important people understand when you say they wind up dead. The woman from the wolf rescue in Southern California said that any wolf dog, leave aside a wolf, any wolf dog brought to a shelter must be euthanized immediately by law. They're
it's,
illegal.
it's pretty
They're
typical.
illegal. Yeah.
It's
And if the wolf sanctuary is full, that wolf has to be put down also because he had no business living with humans. The humans had no business making him live with them. You don't don't have wolves living with you. You live with wolves. It's quite different and really an N of one. I don't imagine many other people, with or without a willing spouse, could take on the lifestyle that you embrace.
I think at this point, it's fair to say I've got more years of this than anybody has. The Dutchers did it for a short time. Jim and Jamie Dutcher, I'm sure they're famous
No,
wolf conservationists who did an
no, I don't know
experiment.
them.
They have some amazing books. You should look into them. But they did it for a short period. But I've been doing it for generations of wolves.
Yes.
And I strive to have it was interesting what you're talking about with the original wolf research where they came up with this alpha theory. The animals run related. And I have a pack, a multi-generational pack. My animals are intact. The only thing that I do that's artificial is during breeding season, we separate the boys from the girls so we don't have puppies, which is a difficult time. Everybody's frustrated. The boys sing the blues. The neighborhood is noisy. But we're very vigilant there. We don't want to have reproduction. The only time we would allow that is if we want to expand the operation and add to the captive group. But it's been a long process to get good at this. I think my wife and I are pretty good at this, but it's what we do. My wife is a chef; she runs restaurants, but pretty much I stay home with wolves.
Yeah, and just to be clear again about that original wolf research, when you said they weren't related, wolves who aren't related in the wild are not supposed to be living together. They don't want to live together.
That's
They're
right.
being forced at a sort of human gunpoint to cohabitate as if people from a completely different tribe or different warring religions even are forced to live together. It's not going to be harmonious because that was never their intention. They want to go and live in their own areas in their own way of living. Whereas if they're related, which you've learned from living with them, in fact, as I understand it, when the wolves want to make their wish known to each other, there's no fighting, there's no duel to the death, there's no one wolf holding another down by the neck. Stink Eye will do it. Maybe a curled lip. Is that right?
There's contact for sure, but
Okay.
fights that result in a constrained environment, of course, you have an unnatural circumstance, right? In the wild, it's very rare that wolves within the same family group will kill each other. There have been some instances where that has happened, but they've been very unusual. In Yellowstone, the Yellowstone Wolf Project actually chronicled it's a very famous story. It's wolves 40 and 42, which were some of the earliest wolves that were recovering in the park. And Wolf 40, if I remember correctly, was the older sister, siblings, and she was vicious. She was very dominant. She was aggressive. She was the Druid family group. It's a very large pack. They had multiple breeding females, which is unusual. And 40 would kill 42's pups every year.
Oh my God.
And and finally, 42, who was a more collegial wolf and had alliances with other wolves in the pack, there came a time when 40 went to kill 42's pups, and the sisters killed 40. They found her mortally wounded.
Wow.
And ultimately, then 42 took control of the Druids with a male wolf 21, who was generally considered to be the greatest alpha wolf of Yellowstone's history
Wow.
in
That's
terms of
so cool.
his reproductive success. And the Druids became the largest and most stable wolf family group for generations. It was an amazing success story. And she was just nicer. She encouraged cooperation. She shared food. She
That's
tolerated mischief.
amazing. That's so,
They
I
called her
want,
the Cinderella wolf.
has some, you've got to write this.
Rick McIntyre, the chronicler of Yellowstone wolves, who has
Oh
written
my,
The
what a
Reign of Wolf
story.
21.
Wow.
He tells those stories, and I'm just retelling his telling of them. So I don't want to take credit where it's not due by any means. That whole team has done remarkable work in Yellowstone.
But many of us have never heard this. And now that you've written a book that we selfishly are curious to read, The Wolf Lover's Guide to Raising Dogs, because most of us don't want to live in a wolf pack, and we certainly don't want to raise a wolf, but we do want to do well by our dogs and admit to the wolfiness within them. I think that you telling these stories is so amazing that this one wolf 21 and he's got a number. I don't know, there's something about it that it just reminds me of you as this little boy reading a book about basically Dora the Explorer, but you're a guy, you're a boy, and you're reading a book about a little girl and you're like, I get it. I want a wolf too. And you never gave up. Oliver, that's so amazing. I think it also tells us, even though you feel, as many of us do, oh, woe is me about the next generation, because everyone says that. Don't matter what the generation is, everybody, oh, the next generation, they're going to be lazy or they're going to be one thing or another that's not as good as us, kind of thing. But that imagination of a child, it still exists. So
I
you
just want them to take
shape
it
your life
outside.
around it.
I just want them to go outside without their phone, get their hands dirty, get a scraped knee, like experience nature. And one of the reasons I enjoy sharing the wolves so much is I want to inspire more people to care, to love them, right?
Yes.
There's something
Appreciate.
so vital in our world, something truly wild, and
Yeah.
our world needs wildness.
Yeah. And the people that seek it out, the wildness in nature, are few and far between. You guys are adventurers, whether Diane Fossey climbs mountains to hang with gorillas or these various one-off people like you who choose to live with animals in order to understand them, in order to respect them and appreciate them and share that with other humans. I think that the world, unfortunately, has changed so much. Now, there might be people living in Tahoe who have access to a safe outdoor environment, but there's also people living in Tahoe who live in developments, right? Because man has now built up all the nice places, not all of them, but a lot of them. So there's not that much open land. And everyone, some people talk about, oh, the good old days. My mom would say after breakfast on the weekend, see you for dinner, come home when it's dark, do whatever you want to do. You
Yep.
can't do that anymore. First of all, there's millions of more cars and a million ways, sadly, that children can be in jeopardy, whether they're little children or teenage children. So the world isn't safe anymore. You've found a safe place with your wolves and for your wolves. I wish that the rest of the world could have safe havens. Maybe children going to summer camp. Does that count?
I think any time that you get a chance to be in nature, whether it's a nice park in your city or California is vast, right? I mean,
Yes,
there are
yes.
still tremendous
Yep.
tracts of wilderness. I can walk out my door with the wolves and I could walk for days without crossing a road if
Wow.
I choose the right direction.
Wow. Cool.
We do still have those places. And Tahoe's a unique community in the sense that there are quite a lot of kids that are outside a lot, that people that live here choose that lifestyle for their
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
There's days when I go skiing and I see a 9-year-old skiing by himself or
Kidding. That's
yeah,
cool.
I mean,
That's
it's
neat.
safe enough that you can do that here
Yeah.
still, thankfully.
It is thankful. And so we just have to recognize there are pockets like that. And anytime we can, as you say, go to Central Park or the park in Chicago. Chicago has a lot of amazing parkland too. Or if you're
Yep.
in London, Hyde Park or other parks, and revel in whatever's in the dirt there. But
And look for coyotes because there's
I
coyotes everywhere.
it's hard for me to feel warm and fuzzy about coyotes because they do kill a lot of dogs and cats in Southern California, unfortunately, because they've been driven out of their environment by way too much human development. I get that. But I
Well,
used to have a coyote
the
that came to the
irony
back door and knocked on it when I had the golden retriever puppy. Hey, is the puppy here? I need lunch.
the
Like,
irony
whoa.
is that coyote numbers have expanded because we've added food sources. But luckily, I'll give you tiny research because I love coyotes too. They're micro wolves to me. Is that they've done a lot of studies on coyote diet, and as much as they're vilified for the dog and the
Right.
cat thing, it represents a really small percentage of their actual diet. Coyotes really are rodent specialists, and
Oh,
it's more than 85% typically of their diet is rodents and insects. And I like to say you could have two coyotes in your neighborhood or 100 mice in your house.
so you're
Yeah,
saying a coyote, I don't know, I call it coyote, you call it coyote. Who knows what's correct? You probably know, you're the
both,
expert. Okay.
both.
Well, you're saying that rather than a cat who you have to keep in kitty litter and food, just to invite a coyote into your neighborhood and it
They're
will do
already
the same
there.
good. They're already
They're
there
already
to
there.
invite them over. Oliver Starr, we've run out of time. It is an absolute delight to talk to you. I hope that many people buy this lovely, fascinating original book, The Wolf Lover's Guide to Raising Dogs. And you're hoping that this book will raise enough money so you can build a wolf conservation and education center where you are. And I'm very much hoping that can happen. You deserve to have your decades of work celebrated and kept safe for generations to come. Thank you
Thank you
so very
so
much.
much. I
Great to
appreciate
meet you
it.
and
It was
talk
a
to you.
pleasure.
Take care.
You too.